I'm not defensive about it.
Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another live stream and welcome back to another emergency meeting. The second emergency meeting in 2 weeks. I wasn't expecting to be here having to do this, but things have got worse again. Things have taken another turn for the worse. A 3-1 defeat against Brighton at Stamford Bridge yesterday afternoon was not what we expected, was not what was required. And once again, there are serious questions surrounding Chelsea Football Club, serious questions surrounding the ownership, the recruitment, and some big questions for the manager to answer as well. Big up to everyone that's already locked in. Make sure you're smashing up the likes. Make sure you subscribe if you're new around here. All of that good stuff. Get involved in the chat. Be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on exactly what is going on. But first things first, guys, make sure you check out Jerseys FC Soccer Shop. Link is in the description. Use code BLUEBROTHER for 20% off. Home kit, away kit, third kit, whatever shirt you want, names, numbers, patches, whatever you want on the back. Great quality, affordable prices. Make sure you check it out. Link is in the description. Use code BLUEBROTHER for 20% off Jerseys FC Soccer Shop. And yeah, it was another car crash yesterday. Another car crash at the bridge. It started so well, though. It started so well, guys. The first half, we were decent. The first half, we played well. We limited Brighton to absolutely nothing. We deservedly led 1-0 at the break through Enzo Fernandez's goal. Lovely pass by Caicedo to Reece James. Nice ball into the box. Slight deflection. Enzo Fernandez crashing the box. Heads home from close range. But once again, guys, let down by another red card, let down by poor discipline, let down by poor decision making. But then, post red card, this is on the manager. Post red card, it is on Maresca. Because once again, for the second consecutive week, when faced with adversity, he is absolutely crumbled. Absolutely crumbled when faced with any sort of adversity. Crumbled against Man United and crumbled against Brighton. You do not take all your attacking threats off the pitch when you're down to 10 men. Maresca seems to think that when you lose a man, that means it's game over. You can't score any goals. You can't attack. All you can do is defend and invite pressure onto yourself. We're not good at defending. I'm not sure if he's noticed. We're not a good defensive team. Yet, we're going to sit deep and invite pressure onto ourselves. Sometimes attack is the best form of defense. We couldn't get hold of the ball. We had no out ball. We had no attacking threat. And we got exactly what we deserved from those tactics onwards. We got what we deserved, guys. Let me get into what some of you lot are saying in the chat. I'm not confident against Liverpool next week. No, I'm not confident against Liverpool next week either. Liverpool have not been good in one game. This is yes, but they got match winners and they win games. Why don't they start signing the players the manager needs? Brother, that is a very good question. And a question that I'd love to know the answer to. But I don't think it's a question we'll ever get the answers for. Bro, it's Christmas come early. It's gifts for everyone. Trust me, next weekend, Florian Wirtz will get his first goal or his first assist, courtesy of Charity FC. Courtesy of us at Charity FC, Florian Wirtz will definitely get his first goal or assist next weekend. No, absolutely not. And I agree on that. And the manager is not entirely at fault. You know, he's at fault from the red card onwards yesterday, and he was at fault for the United game. But ultimately, the problems are bigger than the manager. Bigger than the manager. He's done a lot of good over the last year. He's got things majorly wrong in the last 2 games. But if you suddenly think that changing the manager with these sporting directors and this setup still here actually changes anything, very much mistaken. Might get a short-term boost with a few good results, but ultimately the same problems will keep occurring over and over again. Big up, my brother. Bro, they always do this. Like, a big deal's being made out of this. They go in the dressing room pretty much after every game. But because we lost, it's then suddenly made into a bigger deal than it is. What else are we saying? I will begin to panic when we lose because of the opposition's superiority. So far in the PR, the losses are self-inflicted. I understand that, bro. The losses are self-inflicted, but we also haven't played particularly well in any of the games that we've played this season. And look, let's not talk about ourselves in a title challenge or whatever. Forget about Liverpool. Forget about Liverpool. We need to focus on ourselves. We don't need to be thinking about any other teams. We need to purely focus on ourselves and start picking up results. Stop making stupid errors. These are all things that we need to be focusing on and doing right now. Forget about what any other team is doing. Forget about closing the gap on other teams. What's your opinion on people saying Maresca should get sacked? Look, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I think that's massively wide of the mark and a total misunderstanding of how this football club is run and what will happen. People wanted Potter sacked. Nothing really changed. People wanted Pochettino sacked. Yeah, okay, there was a pickup in performances under Maresca last season. But ultimately, it doesn't matter who the manager is. Because if these sporting directors are still here, it's totally irrelevant. Because we'll just keep having the same conversations with just a different person in the dugout. Yes, big up, bro, big up. Run the likes up, chat. Run the likes up. You know exactly what to do, people. Run those likes up, guys. 100% agree. You can't defend. At least use your attacking threat to try outscore them. But this is the thing, right? There are ways to lose matches. I would rather lose 2-1 I'd rather lose 2-1 trying to win 2-1 rather than playing cowardly football and going out with a whimper and losing 2-1. You should at least show the intent to go for a game. Show that intent. And we didn't show that intent. And when you make those substitutions, when you take off attacking players and put defensive-minded players on the pitch, you are giving the opposition a major boost. You are saying to them, don't worry about defending. All you need to focus on is attacking because we're not going to cause any problems going forward whatsoever. We finished that game with João Pedro as the only attacker on the pitch, with Malo Gusto at right wing and Marc Cucurella having to play as left back and left wing. And there's no threat to get out of the pitch. There's no threat to relieve any pressure. There's no one who can hold the ball up or anything like this. It's horrific. But again, mistake after mistake after mistake. It's Christmas come early for every team that plays Chelsea because you will be getting gifts. The season of goodwill. Gifts, gifts, gifts. That's all we're doing. What else is being said in the chat? Guys, I'll try and read as many of these as I can. And obviously, we'll crack on with the show. We do not have the team or the mentality to do a prime Jose defensive performance. Yeah, of course. No, exactly. Sorry, mate. Should I have been positive after we just lost 3-1 at home to Brighton? Please tell me the positives. People that watch me regularly will know that I always try and be as positive as possible, and I will say things as I see them. What positives were there from losing 3-1 to Brighton? Please tell me. Please inform me of the positives of the 3-1 defeat to Brighton and why I should have been more positive after the game. Of course, the red card changed the game. I hear you on that. And from the red card up to the red card, we played pretty well, which I said. However, to lose 3-1 at home, to go out with a whimper yet again, what should I have been positive about? I don't think he's losing the plot, bro. I do think though he really struggles managing a situation with 10 men. He doesn't understand how to manage a game with 10 men. There's a clip doing the rounds again of Cesc Fabregas talking about why he doesn't go defensive when he goes down to 10 men. because you invite pressure onto yourself. You give the other team hope. Let me play this clip now. I don't think I'll get copyrighted. Chat. If we do, we can just remove this bit from the stream. Okay. We're going to bring this on, and this will explain why you don't do this. This will explain why you don't do this, chat. Okay. So this is Cesc Fabregas talking about. Let's get this volume up. So this is Cesc Fabregas, guys, talking about why he doesn't sub on a defender to keep a 1-0 lead. And he doesn't mean sub on a defender to, like, it doesn't mean taking off a player to get 4 defenders on. He means going defensive after the initial changes. So let's listen to this.
0, for example, and you change a midfielder or a striker and you put a defender in the last 10-15 minutes, you're playing with a back five all of a sudden, because you saw from outside that they are playing with really high fullbacks, or whatever reason. Inside, the players, you see that he's taken a striker off, he's put a defensive player on. So automatically your mindset is, oh, the coach wants us to defend, we have to sit back, and you attract pressure and you invite them to have the ball more, and you invite them to attack you more and to be more dangerous. And the more they are on your pitch, one day it can happen that you can kill them on counter-attack and score the second goal, but 80-90% of the time it backfires, because you invite pressure and there's a penalty, there's a little free kick or a cross, rebound. Like if you are winning 1-0.
And that, guys, is why you do not do that. That is why you do not. That someone like Cesc Fabregas, right? But I'm not saying hire Cesc Fabregas, but this is someone who is an exceptional up-and-coming manager. That is the mindset and the mentality. And this is what people don't understand. That is what people don't understand, right? Is that when you do that, you invite all the pressure onto yourself. Why do we need... Yes, he is talking about having 10 men. Of course he is. Bro. Of course he is. You know, we haven't got the right mindset when going down to 10 men or trying to protect a lead. Whether it's 11 men, whether it's 10 men. It's the same principle. You invite pressure onto yourself, which is totally unnecessary. Okay. Bro, if you've got a good defense, right? We haven't got a good defense. So why on earth is Maresca telling us to defend? Why on earth is he making us go super defensive when we've got a poor defense? How is that a good idea? Let's do more of what we're not good at. We're not good defensively, so let's put more defenders. So let's put more defenders on the pitch and drop deeper and try and defend and see the game out. We're not good enough to do that. We are not good enough to be doing that. You know, it's not. This is not just the manager's fault, by the way. And I am not blaming the manager for the start to the season. However, the last 2 games, the manager has been really, really poor. He's been really poor. There's absolutely no denying it. He's been really poor the last two games. I don't understand why people... Bro, it's a mistake from the manager. It doesn't mean that you hate the manager. It doesn't mean that you don't support the club. It doesn't mean that you don't support the team. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I cannot understand how people are saying that they cannot see how taking off all our attacking threat contributed to our downfall yesterday. I don't understand how they see that. And if you've got a good defence, it's fine. Sure. If you've got a good defence, it's absolutely fine to do that. Agreed. So why, when you've not got a good defence, are you defending us doing that? This is baffling. This is absolutely baffling to me. I don't understand it. Gusto coming on would have been fine if it was James going off. That would have been fine. Or if he was coming on for Cucurella. If Gusto was coming on for another defender and it was a like-for-like swap at fullback, that wouldn't have been that bad. Gusto coming on to play right wing and removing attacking threat, that is a bad sub. Not necessarily the wrong player coming on, but it was the wrong player coming off. I mean, I really couldn't care less, to be perfectly honest. What else is being said? No, but bro, again, I'm struggling to understand your point of view here. We can't hold on, right? This team can't hold on. You've just said it yourself. This team cannot hold on. So why did the manager then set this team up to try and hold on when we are poor defensively? And by your own admission, we cannot do that. So bro, this is not making sense. How many games are we going to get 10 men? Well, bro, every week, if we keep on doing what we're doing, it's 3 red cards in our last 8 games. 3 reds in the last 8 games. But yeah, E-Man, this is it. You know, the manager was good. I was happy with the performance up until the red card. Even 10 minutes after the red card, we looked reasonably comfortable. The only point we started to look uncomfortable was as soon as we took off all of our attacking threat. That's when we started to look uncomfortable. Once the Welbeck equaliser went in, there was only one way that result was going. We almost held on. But again, more defensive errors. Achimpong, poor. And we can see 2 goals in added time at the end. But it is the manager's fault for thinking that we are good enough defensively to protect a lead, leaving us with no outball, no attacking threat, no way to get up the pitch, just wave after wave of attack, the game basically being played in our own half, inviting pressure onto ourselves. We're not good enough to soak that pressure up. And yet the manager thinks it's a good idea. So no, I'm not saying that someone said that, oh, do you know more than the manager? No, I don't know more than the manager. But if you know you're defensively weak, then surely it's not a good idea to try and see out a 1-0 lead with 40 minutes of the game left. That to me is not a good idea. No, am I going wrong here? Am I going to be wrong? Am I wrong here? What's going on? What's going on? Look, again, and this is something that I've criticised the manager for. And this is something I criticise the manager for. Whether you like the squad or not, put your tinfoil hat on and make better use of what you've got at your disposal. Whether you like it or not. You know, when is that going to happen? I agree with this. I agree. But yeah, I heard his explanation for it. You know, he felt that Reece was struggling against Minte, so he wanted to go 2v1 on that side. I felt, to be honest, we were coping pretty well. I don't really see the need for us to do that. I felt defensively we limited Brighton to very, very little. Very, very little we limited Brighton to. And I don't think Reece was particularly struggling against Minte to the point where we needed to go 2v1 on that side. I wasn't really getting that feeling. Bro, my head was gone. My head was gone. Brother was doing the Ronaldo chop, the CR7 chop, instead of heading towards goal. At that point, my head was gone. My head was fully gone at that point. Finitoed, done, dusted, gone. What again? Decision making. Chalobah, decision making for the red card. We've got 40 minutes of the game left. It wasn't even like an unbelievable goal scoring opportunity. You know, he could have easily missed, could have forced a save. Decision making. If there's 10 minutes left, fair enough. Maybe that's more understandable with 10 minutes left. 40 minutes left. Decision making, lack of game intelligence, lack of understanding of the scenario. Same with Robert Sanchez, same with Chalobah this week. Santos giving the ball away in poor areas. You know, we've got to start making better decisions. There is a lack of experience in this team. A lack of experience in this team, a lack of know-how, a lack of understanding of the situation. A lack of understanding of the situation that you're in. All players make mistakes. That's part of the game. It always happens. Okay? But the rate at which we are making mistakes every single week is alarming. If we go through the goals that we've conceded this season. Okay, so it was 0-0 against Palace. All right, the Paqueta one was a worldie. Sanchez should do better. We stood off him. Clean sheet against Fulham. Brentford, both goals we conceded were a defensive shambles. Man United, both goals we conceded were a defensive shambles. All 3 goals against Bayern Munich were a defensive shambles, individual errors. The goal against Lincoln was another individual mistake. And then all the goals against Brighton were a defensive shambles as well. You cannot do this. You cannot keep making the amount of mistakes that we're making and expect to pick up any points in the Premier League. That is where I cut the manager slack. Okay, whether you've got enough quality at your disposal, whether you've got the players that you want, it is very hard when you're on the sidelines where week in, week out, you have got players who are gifting goals to the opposition without fail, sometimes on multiple occasions during a match. That is where I have sympathy for the manager. And I like Maresca. I'm a big fan of Maresca. I think he's done a lot of good stuff over the last few years, but you can feel that, over the last year, you can feel that something feels a bit off this season. Something doesn't feel right. From the transfer window to Maresca's comments in the press to all these things. Something doesn't feel quite right around Chelsea right now. I don't know exactly what it is, but something feels off. The narrative is starting to change a little bit. Yesterday was inexcusable from 10 men onwards. You know, yesterday wasn't inexcusable from 10 men onwards. And I don't know if anyone else noticed this, right? But as soon as we went 1-0 up, we just stopped attacking. As soon as we went 1 up, we stopped attacking. We got that goal, and then it's just like, right, we lifted that handbrake up and stuck the handbrake on when we went 1-0 up. This is not the first time that we've gone a goal up or taken the lead in the game and stopped playing. It must be the manager's instructions to slow the game down and keep the ball instead of trying to push on for more goals. Sanchez was having more touches than the attacking players after we went a goal up. Why are we playing so safety first? You know, we played very safe, played like we were scared. I don't get it. We were good in the first half. Yeah, we were good probably for the first 25 minutes, half an hour. Okay, we weren't brilliant in the first half. We played it safe. We were too soft. You know, the ruthless Chelsea. Where's that ruthless streak gone? Where's it gone? We're stopping playing. We're stopping playing after we go a goal up. Bro, I don't understand what your point is. My point is not about who. I know that we've got poor options at centre-back. I'm fully aware of that. I didn't have an issue with the centre-back pairing that was put out yesterday. My whole issue was with the subs that were made, taking off all the attacking threat. This has nothing to do with the defensive options available. With what we had available, Chalobah and Jarell Hato, given Achimpong had been ill and Badia Shield's not played since the Benfica game in the Club World Cup, I didn't have a problem with that. My problem was the tactics after we went down to 10 men. That is the problem that I've got. And to think we're playing at home, so why not give... Yeah, exactly. Exactly, bro. He certainly has done in the last 2 games, and that's a concern, and that's a massive thing that, you know, I've been critical of Mikel Arteta for at Arsenal, playing not to lose rather than playing to win. Playing not to lose rather than playing to win. And that's a problem. But the bigger problem is the way the squad's been put together. The bigger problem is the way the squad's been put together, guys. You know, where is the accountability? Where's the accountability from those above? You know, we need this international break ASAP. We need it ASAP. It's a really poor start to the season. We've had real winnable fixtures, and to be 8 points from a possible 18 is really, really poor. Really poor. Bro, this is exactly my point. This is the exact point that I'm trying to make. That we're not defensively good enough to be sitting off the way that we are. That's the point that I'm making. So that's why I don't understand the tactics at that point in time. We are not good enough to sit off, invite pressure on, and soak up that pressure and play defensive football like that and see a result out. Every so often, you might get success with that. You might see a result out. I understand that and I get that. But generally speaking, we're not good enough defensively to do that. So why are we doing that? It absolutely does make a difference. Of course, a red card makes a difference. But there are ways of dealing with a red card. And a red card is not a death sentence. A red card doesn't mean that you can't win a game. A red card doesn't mean that you have to take all your attackers off. A red card doesn't mean that you can't have any more attacks and you can't score any goals. Red cards don't mean that. Of course, it makes a difference. But there are ways of dealing with it. And in the last 2 games, we have not dealt appropriately with the red card. I'm not too fussed, to be honest. No, brother, he's definitely not, by the way. He's definitely not. Yeah, they are. Sunderland are doing better than us. Well, it appears that way. But the ideal situation would be, guys, let's stop getting sent off. Let's keep 11 players on the football pitch to begin with. That would be a very, very good idea, wouldn't it? Let's stop putting ourselves in difficult situations that are totally avoidable. Let's stop doing it. Let's stop doing that. Why are we constantly putting ourselves in these ridiculous situations? Putting ourselves in ridiculous situations, chap. It's mind-blowing. It's honestly mind-blowing, the situation that we're putting ourselves in. We'll get slapped up in Champions League. Well, we could well do. Brother, I hear you. I hear you, because I felt exactly the same. I felt exactly the same. Yeah, look, if we did that against a Liverpool, or we did that against Barcelona or a Bayern Munich, I would understand it more. But you're at home at Brighton. If you're away at a big side or you're playing a big team, that makes a bit more sense. I get that. I understand it. But at home to Brighton, I just don't get it. Yeah, the worst, exactly. I definitely did. I definitely did have a go at the way the squad was put together and those above. I certainly did. Bro, the individual mistakes are not on the coach. Not on the coach. Yes, you could say maybe the insistence on playing out and players not taking decisions into their own hands at times and doing the right thing for said situation. I get it. But we can't start blaming systems and the way we're set up for people getting sent off, for people giving the ball away, for people making ridiculous errors. We cannot start doing that, because that is nothing to do with systems, to do where you are on the pitch. That is just to do with pure lack of intelligence in a game situation. That's all that's to do with. Absolutely. And that's where I'm talking about decision making. There's 40 minutes left in a game. It's not even like an unbelievable goal scoring opportunity. It's a decent opportunity. It's a decent opportunity for sure. But he could, he could miss. It could be saved. Like, is no one learning from their mistakes? The manager's not learned from last week, and the players haven't learned from last week either. They're not learned. Yeah, bro, that summed us up yesterday. Bro, again, there's please tell me what there was to be positive about. I praised the first half performance, and then after that, we were a disgrace after the 10 men situation. So again, I asked you earlier to provide me with what I should have been more positive about, and you haven't done that. But do you know what's funny, right? Yes, we're obviously a much worse team without Cole Palmer, and we need Cole Palmer to help us. I fully get that, but also our 2 wins in the league this season have both been without Cole Palmer. We've not won a league game with Palmer. We didn't win against Brentford. We didn't win against Man United. Admittedly, only played 20 minutes. And then, obviously, we didn't win yesterday, and he wasn't playing. So the 2 games we won in the league have both been without Palmer. So there's actually been no league win with Palmer in the side this season. But of course, we desperately need him back, and we've got to find solutions. We have to be finding solutions. But I don't know what those solutions are. No, it's got nothing to do with the quality of the player. It's got to do with the mindset and the mentality. Because you are going defensive, you're taking off attacking threat and putting a defender on. It's not to do with Gusto coming on in terms of he's absolutely terrible and he's going to make us lose the game. It's the intention and the mindset in that situation, and the boost that it gives to the opposition. Because we just invited them to attack. Up until that point, they'd hardly had any opportunities. I don't think it was all down to tactics. Achimpong giving the ball away is not a tactical problem. That is a quality issue at that point in time. You cannot give the ball away where he gave the ball away. The goals we're conceding are not tactical issues. They're just damn right quality issues. And that's the biggest issue. They are quality issues at the football club. Quality issues. Neto's not looking that great. Yeah, he works hard. He has a few moments here and there, but he's struggling to really offer anything right now. He's struggling to offer anything in games or having any meaningful impact on matches. That in itself is a problem. That in itself is a major problem. We're already hearing things. Bro, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Look, again, we can't predict the future, but I think one of the wingers is going to leave in the summer. And it's not going to be Esteval. Yeah, okay, it could be one of Gittins or Garnacho, but after 1 year, it would be, I mean, it wouldn't totally surprise me, but it would still be, you know, a little bit of a surprise. He could well be gone next summer. But already we're getting, it's not even October, and we're already getting stuff like this. BBC Sport understands Chelsea set Maresca the target of qualifying for the Champions League this season with the intention of reviewing that at the end of the campaign. So we're already hearing things about targets for the season. You know, we're already hearing pieces that are criticizing the manager. It's not looking good. It's not looking good when these sorts of things start coming out. You know, and the narrative around the manager, the narrative around the football club seems to be, I don't know, it seems to be changing a bit, chat. I can't lie. It seems to be changing a bit. You know, can we see what's happening here? The murmurings of discontent from Chelsea fans towards Maresca are starting to surface again, and they might eventually be joined by the owners if they look on the face of Eghbali was anything to go by in the aftermath of today's defeat. Can you see what's happening here? Can you see the seeds that are being sown? Can you see the narrative that is starting to form? We set up, I actually think we set up pretty well in that Brighton game. I think their starting 11 was fine. Should have been braver when we were a man down, absolutely. But a bigger issue should be, stop being a man down. Any manager out talk, in my view, is misdirected, is pointless. Nothing's going to change until those above are held accountable. And until those above are held accountable, Chelsea are locked in a vicious cycle right now. It will be, bro, the manager was a coward yesterday. The manager was a coward yesterday, as he was a coward against Man United as well. You know, we have to be honest about these things. He was a coward in both those games. However, I'm fully aware that the biggest problem right now is going to be the sporting directors. Biggest problem is the sporting directors. And nothing really will truly change at Chelsea until the sporting directors have got the boot. But that's not going to happen. So we have to try and manage the situation. We have to try and manage with what we've got. And that's difficult because what we did in the summer was not good enough. What happened in the summer, chat, was not good enough. Was not good enough. We all knew this. Most of us knew that it wasn't good enough. We all knew that we needed a centre-back. What is the one area, right, that we all knew we needed, that Maresca publicly pleaded for? Centre-back. And what is the one... And what was the one... and what's the one area of the pitch that we've struggled on the most? Centre-back. Struggling at centre-back. The one position that we asked desperately for to be strengthened. And now we're struggling there the most. It's not a surprise. And look at this for a stat here. Look at this for a stat here, by the way. Look at this. And this is where I do have sympathy with the manager, as I've said before. Last season, 14 errors leading... Oh, I better not play that. 14 errors leading to goals in the Premier League last season. Okay. This season, we've played 8 games in total, if you include our cup games, and we've made 6 errors leading to goals. If we're going for Champions League, if we're looking to close the gap on the teams above us, we do not, that is not what you do. You cannot look to close the gap. You cannot look to close the gap on the teams above us if we're making that many errors. 6 errors leading to goals in 8 games. I can't believe it. I honestly can't. But again, and restrictions is a very good point here, right? And it has handicapped us. However, what I would like to say here is that is totally self-inflicted. Those restrictions are entirely our fault. We overspent, and we have been punished as a result of that. But again, those restrictions are self-inflicted because we overspent. Arrogant in the summer? Not particularly. Was happy with some of the stuff we did, but consistently said that we hadn't done enough, not enough quality had come in, and we'd left key areas totally unaddressed. If you interpret that as arrogant, that's fine. That's your interpretation. But I was happy with some stuff, but there was a lot of room for improvement, and not enough quality came in. That's all I'm saying. Yes, guys, run the likes up. We're almost 200 in the building. Smash that like button. We're on 93 likes. Let's get this up to 150 likes, chat. Smash that like button. It's free. It takes seconds to do so. So run these likes up. Let's keep it moving, people. Keep it moving. Run the likes up, chat. Well, that's great. I mean, it's probably going to be too late by January. Or we've got some money. We set aside some money in January for the summer. Well, that's great. What about the matches between now and January? That's not going to help us. I mean, I just don't get it. Look, I like Chalobah. I think he's a decent defender. But as I've mentioned again, I said that he shouldn't be starting every single week for Chelsea. He shouldn't be starting every week for Chelsea. If you are playing him alongside a Colwell, then maybe it's a little bit different because he's got someone decent to play alongside. I don't mind having Chalobah as a squad player, but he shouldn't be starting every single week. And my stance on that has been very, very clear. He should not be starting every week. And we're massively paying the price for a centre-back, for not having a centre-back. You know, I just don't know. But these errors have got to stop. The amount of errors we're making has to stop. Maresca absolutely is at fault for the last 2 games. But ultimately, he's been massively, massively let down in another transfer window. As Carragher said, you know, after we won the Club World Cup, that should have been a moment where we set out our intentions. Right, we're coming for the Premier League, we're coming for the Champions League, and we're going to make signings that show that. Instead, we didn't do that. And look, I'm delighted we won the Club World Cup, you know, really pleased, wouldn't swap it. But the reality is, and we're all going to have to come to the realization here, is that for this season, winning that Club World Cup has done more harm than it's done good. You know, winning the Club World Cup has done more harm than good for this season. But I don't think there's any escaping that. I don't think there's any escaping that at all. There's no escaping that. There really isn't, chat. No escaping. No, it wasn't Chalobah's fault. Obviously, look, it's more on Santos than it is on Chalobah. But again, I go back to decision making. Yes, I know he's desperate to win the ball and to prevent that. But you know, we've got to be more intelligent in these situations. We've got to read game situations in a much better way. And unfortunately, Chalobah didn't do that. Yes, Santos leaves him in the shit big time, but Chalobah didn't make the best decisions. Didn't make the best decisions. I don't know. Red card bingo for Liverpool. I mean, do you reckon? Well, actually, forget Liverpool. Red card bingo against Southampton. Against Benfica. That's probably what we need to be. That's what we need to be thinking about, chat. Red card bingo against Southampton. Against Benfica. I don't know why I keep saying Southampton. Red card bingo against Benfica. Yes, big up, brother. I hope you're well. It's on both. It's on both. Look, there's not one singular party at blame for what's going on right now. It's a collective. Yes, there's probably parts of the collective that are more at fault than others, but it's a collective issue. Ownership, directors, manager, and players are all responsible for what is happening right now. It's a collective responsibility. This is facts, bro. This is facts. So yeah, look, errors leading to goals. That's got to be cut out. Got to be cut out. But something just doesn't feel right. Something's not feeling right with where we're at right now. You know, everything feels off. And it feels like things are going to come to a head soon. But do you know what's interesting though, chat, by the way? On the red card situation, look what happened against Newcastle when we went down to 10 men last season, when Nicholas Jackson got sent off. We dug in, we rallied, and we were by far the better side and looked really dangerous. What's changed between now and then? What's changed between now and then? With how we dealt with 10 men at Newcastle to now? Because effectively, we've just waved the right flag and surrendered. And surrendered 2 games. Where was that spirit we showed with 10 men against Newcastle? We have got a problem here. Because you can see the wheels are starting to turn. When certain things start coming out in the media, when certain narratives start getting pushed, eventually this only ends with this only ends in one outcome. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen that the manager's going to leave, but you know, the wheels are starting to turn. And it feels like there's a sense of an inevitable outcome at some point. And obviously, like with any manager, like with any situation, if the manager were to go, obviously the directors have to go with him. But we know that's not going to happen. We know that won't happen, chat. In total control again. Shot ourselves in the foot. Pathetic from all involved, as I said. But, as I've said, look, everyone's entitled to their opinions, by the way. But sacking the manager is pointless. The squad lacks quality in key areas. Centre-back, goalkeeper, striker. Again, lack of discipline. Individual mistakes. Huge issues. And I think a lot of that stems from a lack of experience. Recalling Mark Guiu was pointless. Utterly pointless. Sporting directors 3 years in are still 3 years in, are unable to provide a manager with a quality squad, balanced and good enough options to cover for injuries that inevitably will occur over a season. The team looks knackered, especially late on in games. How tired are we looking? Tired against United, look tired against Lincoln, look tired against Brighton late on. You know, we're 1 win in 5 games. We've got 2 difficult games against Benfica and Liverpool. I don't want to say I'm not being negative here. This is reality and something that could happen. 1 win in 5, which was against Lincoln, by the way. I mean, even struggled in that. That could easily become 1 win in 7. Could easily become 1 win in 7 with Benfica and Liverpool up next. There's no guarantees that we are going to get positive results in those games. And that's where things could be a problem. That's where things could be a problem. But the manager's not been backed. And this is what I've got a massive issue in, right? Is the directors constantly not backing managers and giving them a good enough squad to compete and push ourselves higher up the table. No, I'm not talking about any new managers or potential managers coming in at this point in time. I'm not doing that. I still think Maresca will see the season out. I still believe that, but ultimately the results have got to pick up, and the results have got to pick up really fast. Really fast, those results have got to pick up, because otherwise, yeah, we are going to be in serious trouble. We're going to be in serious trouble if results don't pick up quickly. And there's only so long that you can be. There's only so long that you can keep picking up these kinds of results. It only goes one way when you're picking up those kind of results. Well, I mean, look, numbers-wise, yes. But quality-wise, absolutely no. And this is why I cannot understand when you look at, from a director's perspective, right? How on earth can you look at the squad and think the goalkeeping situation is fine, and think that the quality of the pool of centre-backs we've got is good enough, and think that the depth you've got at number 9 is fine? There's a finite ceiling with what we're doing, with starting again every summer with raw players. There's a finite ceiling to that. Mark Guiu is not rated by the manager. Totally pointless recalling him. He clearly doesn't rate Jamie Gittins. Clearly doesn't really think Alejandro Garnacho is that good either. That's £90 million of summer signings that the manager doesn't like or doesn't think are good enough. Garnacho's played 10 minutes in 3 Premier League matches. 10 minutes. And look, even if you don't like the players you've got to make better use of what you have right now. And I don't think Maresca's utilising the squad to the best of his ability. He's not been given a squad that's good enough to compete with. And he may well be right that both aren't that good. But these are the players that you've got at your disposal, and therefore they need to be used, or they need to be made better use of. You know, Garnacho could have offered more than Neto yesterday. You know, I don't see how he couldn't have done. I don't see how he couldn't have done. And people go on about UEFA restrictions. That didn't come into play until July. Why are we signing so many? Why are we signing 5 attackers but signing no centre back and no goalkeeper? We could have got away with signing a couple less attackers and bringing in a goalkeeper and a centre back and keeping Nicholas Jackson. And that would have been. I would have rather have kept Nicholas Jackson, not signed Gittins, and signed a centre back and a goalkeeper. That would have made much more sense. But we don't seem to do anything that makes sense right now at this football club. making sense of things is not what we do, chat. That's not what we do here. We don't do things that make sense. Yeah, we had a month to replace Colwell. And we actively chose to do absolutely nothing about it. A month to replace Levi Colwell. By the way, chat, keep smashing the likes. We're on 109 likes. Let's get this up to 150 likes as quickly as possible. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new around here as well. That would be greatly appreciated, guys. But yeah, run it up. Run it up. Run it up. To be fair, though, like the Hincapié situation, I do kind of understand that because he's very similar to Jarell Hato in terms of he's more of a centre back that plays left back rather than left back centre back, but it's a similar kind of profile. I can understand why both of those weren't signed, but you know, for example, there was a Mosquera that Chelsea looked at, that Chelsea had scouted, that you know was a possibility of him being used. But we didn't use him. You know, we didn't get him. That's someone that probably would be that's someone that would without doubt be starting for us right now. Arguably, we don't look. I said it on the show earlier this week with Pice. I think that the revamp we saw in the forward line this summer, I think we're going to see a similar level of upheaval in the centre-back department next summer. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 of Tosin, Chalobah, Fofana and Badiashile were sold. I genuinely think 3 of those 4 will be sold. Genuinely think that is a possibility. Who they're going to be replaced with, I've got absolutely no idea. And that's perhaps the worrying part. Who's going to replace these guys? Who will replace these guys? That's worrying. And we are worse. We are worse. We're worse than last season. The squad might be better, but the actual team isn't better. The actual team is not better than last season. How have we gone through a team? How can we go? How can the team be worse than it was last season? Surely the aim is to move forward. How is this to progress as a team if the decision makers are actively making the team worse? We need centre backs, but it's too late now. Look, it was poor from Santos. It was, but there was still 40 minutes of the game left. There was still a lot of time to make things happen at that point, and we didn't. We actively chose not to. And that is the big problem. Yeah, look, Achimpong, first appearance since the opening day of the season. What are you expecting from an 18, 19-year-old centre-back? You know, it's going to happen. Of course it's going to happen. It shouldn't be a surprise. But ultimately, you know, we are stuck in a cycle. We are stuck in a cycle. And until these directors go, we're going to struggle to move forward as a football club. Yes, we might get the odd success in cup competitions because we are capable of performing well in those competitions. So maybe 6, 7, 8 games, we can string a decent run together. But ultimately, the way that we're set up, the way that we operate, the way that we recruit, it's not conducive to us being consistent over a 38-game period. It's not consistent to us being consistent over a 38-game period. Simple. Look, it's personnel, and it's obviously a structure. It must be a structural issue as well. It must be a structural issue as well as a personnel issue. I'm not sure, but backing Maresca, people talk, and I mentioned he's not been backed. And people might say, oh well, how wasn't he backed? What would backing him have looked like? Well, let me tell you now. Signing Mike Maignan for a start, getting Mark Guehi in, and then Maignan and Guehi would have been backing the manager. 100% that would have been backing the manager. In terms of, no, I don't think so. I think Chelsea have spoken to De Zerbi in the past before Maresca was appointed. Look, if Maresca leaves at some point, then I'm sure De Zerbi could well be a name that gets thought of. But other than that, I wouldn't read too much into anything. This ultimately is the biggest problem. There's too much upheaval in the squad every summer. That's the reality of the situation, chat. There's too much upheaval in the summer to get every summer too much upheaval to get any sort of consistency going in the league. There's a reason we've not finished higher than 3rd place since 2017. Since we last won the league, there's a reason why. Because we lack consistency. Because the players we've got aren't good enough. Yeah, I would imagine that wouldn't surprise me. You might try and get an Areola. You might get Rossinia, McKenna. We know what the shortlist would be. I mean, look, sustainable in terms of finances. Yeah, it probably is sustainable in terms of finances. But in terms of moving forwards, trying to challenge for league titles, winning the biggest trophies, competing at the top level on a consistent basis, I don't see how it's possible with what we've got. I don't see how it's possible, chat. I've got to be straight up on that. I do not see in what world it's possible. I really don't. That's a good question. I'm not really sure. Maybe he doesn't like the way that we treat players. Maybe I don't know what it is, but clearly there's a reason why he doesn't want to come. Look, yeah, it has to a certain extent, and it always was. It always was, and that's another reason why. That's another reason why we should have prepared much better for this eventuality. This is another reason why we should have prepared better. And in my view, we simply did not prepare well enough for the season ahead. And that is another reason why we are struggling right now. We did not prepare well enough for the season ahead. Very simple, guys. Very, very simple. Yeah, each summer, you've got to make the team better. And this summer, we did not make the starting 11 better. Maybe we made the squad slightly better, but we didn't make a big enough improvement overall this summer. and we are paying the price for it. We are 100% paying the price for not improving the team enough. You know? No, I think that's fine now. That was looked at by VAR, and there's not going to be any further action taken. I think the most likely outcome is both Chelsea and Brighton will be charged by the FA for failing to control their players. Caicedo, I think, will escape any action. Bro, ultimately, this board don't like being stood up to and don't like being criticised. So the reality of the situation is you do that, fine, but you will be gone. That's how this unfortunately works. You do that and you will be gone. Bro, there's not really much more you can get out this squad. This squad is not going to win a Premier League. This squad realistically is good enough to finish in the top 3. That's the absolute limit. Bro, I don't think we... how much better? I still think we can finish top 3, top 4 this season, providing there's a big improvement. But this squad is not good enough to do any better than that. That's the reality. Yeah, bro, I agree with you. I agree with you. And that's exactly the problem. Exactly the problem we're facing right now. Exactly the problem we're facing right now. Yeah, when that happens, it's not good. Not good. I don't like having to bring that out. But yeah, the last 2 games, it's had to make an appearance. Well, I had to make an appearance at United because the weather was horrendous. But yeah, obviously, yeah, not good. Really not good. No, what I said is that the limit for this squad is probably top 3. Do I think we can finish top 3 or top 4? Yeah, I still think we can finish top 3, top 4. But that is the limit of this team. The way that the squad's been put together, that realistically is the ceiling, and that is the most that we can achieve. Look, I hope so. I hope so. Even if we have to scam a win somehow, even if we have to get a scrappy 1-0 win where we stink the gaff out and we don't deserve it, we just got to get back to winning ways as quickly as possible. That's what we've got to do. Get back to winning ways as quickly as possible. Look, I'm not writing off top 4 after 6 league games. Absolutely not. But look, City are looking good. I still think the top 4 will be the same as it was last season. I don't think I've seen enough from Newcastle to suggest that they'll be a threat for the top 4. I'm not really seeing enough from Spurs to suggest that they'll be a threat for the top 4. Villa are struggling as well. So, yeah, even if it's by virtue of the other teams that are competing for the top 4 not being as good, then fair enough. But a top 4 finish is a top 4 finish at the end of the day. But look, I know we're struggling right now, but I do believe we're better than a Newcastle. I think we're better than Spurs, and I think we're better than Aston Villa. And those are the teams that we're probably going to be competing with for those spots. So, yeah. A Newcastle win would be fantastic today. A Newcastle win would be absolutely brilliant, and that's exactly what I'm hoping for. Newcastle victory. That's what we need, and that's what we deserve. Bro, I think we are better than Newcastle. We are. We are better than Newcastle, I think. Well, I think we're better than Newcastle. Could well be. But we'll be back there Tuesday night against Benfica, cheering the boys on and hoping for the best. I'm hoping that there's not going to be a major situation on our hands, but things could spiral out of control very, very quickly. Very quickly. We've got to arrest the slump ASAP. We've got to arrest the slump ASAP. Yeah, big problem. Oh, this is such a big week. We can't afford to not beat Benfica. I even think a draw is not good enough. For me, Benfica is must win, and then Liverpool we can't lose. You know, any defeat in these next two games is a big problem. You know, Hato was good yesterday at left centre back. He was decent in the first half, not as good in the second half, and that with the players that we've got out right now is a decent option. It's a decent option to put in there. But ultimately, you know, we shouldn't be in that situation. We should not be in that situation. We really shouldn't. And the team is quite average, and the team is filled with a lot of average players, with a lot of players who might be good in a few years, but absolutely aren't good enough right now. These are major problems. These are major problems that we've got to overcome, chap. Major problems that need to be overcome. Josh and Hato centre-backs against Liverpool. Yeah, quite possibly, unless he thinks he might put Badiashile in there instead of Josh. Maybe Hato and Badiashile. I don't really know. No, which is the whole point that I was making earlier on in the show. You might get an initial upturn in results, but ultimately you'll end up having the same problems. You'll end up having the same problems. Bro, these SDs are doing what the club want them to do. That's why they're still here. That's why they're still here. These directors are doing what the club want them to do. Exactly why they're still here, chap. Exactly why they're still here. Exactly why they're still here. Yeah, and that's the biggest problem. I don't think you've got more problems than us. Yeah, okay. The performance yesterday was poor, but you'll still have a much better. You'll still have a better season than last season. Well, look, let's deal with Benfica first. Let's deal with Benfica first before we get into the Liverpool situation. Let's first of all deal with Benfica. Let's deal with that first. Let's deal with that situation first. Because that's the thing we need to be looking at right now. Is Benfica. That's what the full focus needs to be on. We shouldn't be even thinking about this Liverpool game right now. Absolutely no chance. But again, the manager needs to do better. He's been poor in the last two games. But making him the scapegoat for what's going wrong, nah, less of that. Absolutely less of that. Not good. Not good, chat. Yeah, we need to get to the international break with. Look, realistically, we need a win and a draw minimum from these two games. Win and a draw. Let's see. Let's see. Look, Benfica aren't amazing, by the way, but I mean, admittedly, neither are we right now. Neither are we right now. Benfica are not unbelievable, but we are also poor. We are also poor. So yeah, this is the interesting situation, chat. Very interesting situation. Hmm. Well, no, but we just need to get to that international break first. That's the most important thing. Guys, keep smashing the likes. We're 25 likes away from 150. Let's get this to 150. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. All of that good stuff, guys. Let's get these likes up. Really helps me out. Run it up, run it up. So yeah, it's a big week, chat. Big week ahead. Two massive games. You're never far from a crisis at Chelsea, but it does feel like a narrative is starting to form. It feels like a narrative is starting to form, chat. It does feel that way. And the quickest way to change the discourse is to start winning. Quickest way to change is to start winning. Rodgers is not shit. He's having a terrible start to the season, but he's not shit, by the way. He's not shit. Yeah, top 8 in the Champions League is obviously preferable. No doubt about it. I've always said this. Frank Lampard would make a brilliant sporting director, but he wants to try and he wants a crack at management, and fair play to him. I absolutely respect that. Absolutely respect that. Yeah, I've also said the team's also been poor. The team has been poor this season. I haven't really had an issue with the lineup in any of the games, though. I'll be honest, I haven't really had an issue with the lineup in any of the games. In-game management's been poor, and we've been let down by horrendous individual errors. By the way, I never said that I wanted Morgan Rodgers. All I'm saying is that he's not bad. He's not bad. And that's the point that's being made here. Right, let's have a look at what else is going on, guys. Let's have a look at what else is going on. Don't think there's much else going on. I mean, there could be some Spurs supporters that live in Chelsea. I've got absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea. But anyway, guys, I'm going to round this one out here. Big up to everyone that's tuned in. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Great show as always. Big yourselves up, guys. Please smash that like button on the way out. Please hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. I'm heading towards 20,000 subscribers, so please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Please smash up the likes on your way out. Big love for the support. Big love to everyone for getting involved in the chat. It's greatly appreciated. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon, guys. Let's hope for a Newcastle win. I'll be back tomorrow discussing all the latest Chelsea news, looking ahead to the Benfica game as well. Make sure you tune in for the show tomorrow. And yeah, hopefully things are going to get better, guys. Keep that blue flag flying high. Keep the faith. Let's hope the boys can turn it around. And yeah, huge week ahead before the international break at the end of the week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Up the Chelsea, and we're out. Love.